Americans were promised a golden age, and we keep hearing about how great the economy is, but the reality is far from the paid media reports. Tariffs and economic warfare are hurting American businesses, and one of the hugely affected industries is American farmers. Now, people may argue that this is because of China. China is waging economic warfare by refusing to purchase soybeans, for example. And we can have that conversation, but US taxpayers just funded a $20 billion bailout for Argentina, which President Trump said is, quote, really meant to help a good financial philosophy and, quote, so we can help our neighbors, end quote. So while we can spend all day trying to pin the blame on China or Biden's economy, it really does beg the question when everyday people in such a crucial industry like farmers who feed the American people are struggling so badly, does the US taxpayer really need to be financing a good financial philosophy in Argentina right now to the tune of $20 billion? Mind you, this bailout comes in the midst of a huge hit to American soybean farmers. Those soybeans will be purchased by China from Argentina now. So can this economic situation just be blamed on Biden in light of this recent decision to bail out Argentina? And could that money be better used at home instead? Let's dig into just how dire this situation is. This is from ZeroHedge. It says US farmers are facing the worst economic downturn in at least 50 years. The agriculture industry in the United States is deeply broken. Farmers are the foundation of it all, but they are being financially squeezed from every direction. They're being squeezed by the giant monopolies that control the seeds, fertilizer, and machinery that they need. And they're also being squeezed by the giant monopolies that purchase most of what they produce. Meanwhile, demand from overseas has dried up thanks to the global trade war. US farmers really are facing a perfect storm, and as a result, most farms are losing money and bankruptcies are surging. According to the president of the Nebraska Farmers Union, this is the worst economic downturn for farmers in at least 50 years. Quote, we're in the middle of the worst economic downturn that I've seen in my 50 years, John Hansen, the president of the Nebraska Farmers Union, said at a regional meeting in Beatrice, Nebraska last week. Agriculture is our foundation here in Nebraska and many states in the Midwest. Don Schuller, a corn and soybean farmer, told ABC News, if agriculture is failing here, everything is going to fail. I wish that I could tell you that he's exaggerating, the article says, but I can't. A sobering article that was recently published by AgWeb that was just shared with me is a warning that our farmers are facing a generational collapse. Farmers are not crying wolf. The wolf is real and right outside the door in the form of generational collapse. The inescapable crop math of sustained cropping commodity prices and high input costs has many growers screaming for immediate relief, potentially via aid and payments in late 2025 or early 2026. However, bailouts are band-aids over bullet holes. The giant monopolies that provide the things that our farmers need increase their profits by squeezing farmers, and the giant monopolies that purchase what our farmers produce increase their profits by squeezing farmers. For a while, many farms could still at least break even, but now conditions have gotten so bad that many farmers are losing hundreds of dollars per acre. Yes, says Bailey Buffalo, 40, owner of Buffalo Grain Systems in Jonesboro and president of Farm Protection Alliance. Quote, horror stories. The pain is unreal. Worst farming situation I've seen in my life, Buffalo says. Look at Extension, University of Arkansas numbers. Corn growers losing $240 per acre, soybeans losing $144 per acre, and rice losing $380 per acre. The cotton growers may be worst of all. This is what I mean when I say that the agriculture industry is broken. So what's going to happen as vast numbers of our farmers simply go bankrupt? Well, according to the chairman of the Arkansas Rice Growers Association, banks are projecting farm bankruptcies at 25% to 40%. Graves, the chairman of the Arkansas Rice Growers Association, understands severe hardship. He farmed through the anemic ag crisis of the 1980s. However, the current unrest is a coming disaster unlike anything he's witnessed across a 50-year career. Quote, I've never seen this kind of look in farmers' eyes. It's fear, and it's based in undeniable facts. In August of 2025, Graves sent an open letter to media and politicians pleading for attention to eye-popping numbers. Quote, my letter told what things are like right now. In our geography, it looks like you need to yield 100, 300, 300 to stay ahead, Graves described. That's 100 bushel beans, 300 bushel rice, and 300 bushel corn. Basic Arkansas averages 56 bushel beans, 166 bushel rice, and 175 bushel corn. In a nutshell, we are going over a cliff. Banks are forecasting farm bankruptcies at 25 to 40%, and the dirty secret is out. Everyone knows it. Everyone feels it. Now, we realize this is a lengthy article, but it's very important to go through it because it's very well written and it really does display the facts rather than the, media reports that just pretend that everything's perfect. And let's just focus on the trade war aspect of this for a moment. It says that on top of everything else, export demand has evaporated as a result of the global trade war. Things are particularly bad for soybean farmers. For American farmers who export their harvest directly to Asia, the evaporation of Chinese demand for soybeans at a time when fertilizer and other inputs have become more expensive due to the trade war could potentially be devastating and lead to bankruptcies and foreclosures. It's just a massive shock to our markets, Corey Walters, a professor in the Department of Agriculture Economics at the University of Nebraska, told ABC News. And this is, again, another huge slap in the face when we look at this bailout for Argentina, specifically when it comes to this soybean conundrum, when China is pulling out of US markets and going to Argentina instead, and the US taxpayer is bailing out Argentina. This makes no sense. Now, the White House is acknowledging that our farmers are facing a major crisis and there are plans to introduce an aid package. Quote, soybean, corn, wheat, sorghum, cotton farmers are facing very difficult times, Secretary of Agriculture Brooke Rollins told reporters at the White House on Wednesday. We are currently in conversations here at the White House across government on a farmer aid package. Will that fix anything? Well, not really. The structural issues will still exist, but perhaps if the aid checks are big enough, they will help some farmers avoid bankruptcy for another year. What we really need is to do something about the monopolies so that our farmers can have a chance to scrape out a living. But that isn't going to happen because the monopolies have lots of lobbyists and they contribute vast amounts of money to political campaigns. And of course, it isn't just the agriculture industry that is facing a crisis. All over the country, we are witnessing signs of a major economic slowdown. For example, this year, Hollywood has seen tourism numbers fall off a cliff. Los Angeles' iconic Hollywood district has seen tourism numbers fall off a cliff, sparking fears for the future of the City of Angels. Visit California revealed tourist numbers slumped by 10% this summer compared to the same period of 2024. And businesses on Hollywood Boulevard said customer numbers had plunged by up to 50%, raising the prospect of the neighborhood that is a byword for movies and show business entering into a terminal decline. It concludes by saying a dramatic economic shift is taking place right now. I expect this to be clearly reflected in the economic numbers in the coming months. But this is just the beginning. The pain that we are experiencing now will get a whole lot worse. At the beginning of this article, I stated the agricultural industry is deeply broken. Nobody can deny that. But the truth is that our entire society is deeply broken. And now a time of reckoning has arrived. Someone who's been warning about the worsening economic situation is economist Ed Dowd. I'm sure you all know who he is. He's recently shared an article from CNBC that says Trump threatens China with cooking oil embargo over the soybean snub. Well, Ed said, for some perspective, cooking oil is about an $11 billion industry, or approximately 0.04 of our GDP. So the trade wars and this constant tit for tat that is, quite entertaining, I suppose. Oh yeah, let's own China, is actually hurting people on the ground, and the situation isn't improving for everyday Americans. Someone who's also warned about this is the CEO of GoFundMe, who says that more and more people are crowdfunding to survive. Essentials, which are things like rent, utility bills, car payments, sort of your basic things you need to get through life, that category has gone up significantly in the last 3 years. Take a listen to what he has to say.
On the economy, look through the prism of GoFundMe. I mean, prices for medical expenses, burials, not to get depressing. These things have gone through the roof the past few years.
Yeah, we continue to see all categories grow. I think maybe one indicator that's interesting is we have a group of sort of a category of fundraising we call essentials, which are things like rent, utility bills, car payments, sort of your basic things you need to get through life. That category has gone up significantly in the last 3 years. in practically all our markets, because affordability is an issue in essentially all OECD economies.
So people starting GoFundMe campaigns just to get food, and I don't mean to sound flippant. I just think natural disaster, GoFundMe. I don't necessarily think, wow, I need groceries.
Yes, in some cases, very sadly, that is happening.
Wow.
We're seeing that more and more.
I retweeted that video yesterday with the caption, "Why are people having to crowdfund just to survive in this golden age?" Yes, I was being facetious because I'm seeing so many people online discussing their very real financial struggles, which are not improving. And I'm not talking about freeloaders that aren't hard workers. I'm talking about everyday people, some of them working multiple jobs, facing the reality that they're still struggling to make ends meet, let alone the fact that they will never be able to own a home in the direction that things are going in. And it appears no real steps are being taken to address this, and people continue to be gaslit and told prices are going down while all signs point to them continuing to go up. When you have your farmers, the people who feed you, saying that they're in the worst situation they've been in their entire career, something is very wrong. My tweet was met with some people blaming Biden's economy and, other Fox News lines. But Biden didn't just hand $20 billion of your hard-earned tax dollars to Argentina, who's now going to do quite well with soybeans, actually. Something needs to change, and fast.